first question. The question is, how will the increase in work hours influence the number of people applying to be international students in Canada, and why? And so I'd like to pose that question to Randall and Bipin, please.
Okay, thank you. Good morning from the West Coast. Good afternoon to everybody else, I think. Thanks for inviting me to this, and I would join Arun in saying glad to be part of this distinguished panel. I'd like to begin with some praise for IRCC. I know it doesn't come all the time, but they've got a very difficult job. You've got stakeholders in the institutions who take personal umbrage at lack of visa success, and you've got lineups and an overwhelmed work crew. So, and you've also got what Arun mentioned of the unintended consequences. So, in answer to this question, will there be more applicants coming to Canada because of this this policy shift? I would say yes, but I would also say, are those the ones we want in terms of migrating, transitioning into the workforce at a later date? I can see large communities of stakeholders arguing for this policy in terms of, if I own a Dairy Queen or a Home Depot or a Best Buy, I'll be delighted to be able to have young unskilled labor come in and in the service industry to work for 40 hours a week. There are populations, maybe smaller urban colleges, maybe some of the private colleges will really like this, but not all of the institutions do like it. And at the end of the day, is this fair to our students? I know this is a validation or a justification for some students who are maybe already working closer to 40 hours and keeping them in the fold and away from trouble. But if you're working 40 hours a week, is that going to extend your period of study? Is that going to allow you to give full attention to your studies? Is that doing a disservice to the students? And maybe one of the things to look at is some tough love in terms of making sure students can afford to come to Canada before we just give them opportunities to maybe disappear into the workforce before their degrees are completed. So I do think there are unintended consequences, but then maybe the bigger picture is that this is not about education at all, that this is about labor market development, and the labor market needs these people, and the unintended consequences, maybe some deleterious effect on the international students and the institutions. So yes, it will increase the number of international students. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Randall. And Bipin, would you like to respond with the perspective from the international students as a representative of the Canadian Federation of Students?
Hi, Margaret. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this wonderful panel. And I would just echo what Randall has said, that we do believe that this change in policy actually would help in increasing number of international students coming to Canada, because increasing work hours would actually help a lot of the students afford the high international fees that students pay. But as Randall has mentioned and Arun has also pointed out, the unintended consequences are students going to extend the time? That may be true, but that is because one of the things, as an international student coming from CFS, one of the things we actually hear from a lot of the students is the fees that international students pay is not regulated, and that increases sometimes 2 to 3 times compared to a domestic student. So when international students are paying such high fees, that's one of the reasons the students need more hours to work, is to just pay bills. And otherwise we have heard stories from students where this causes food insecurity or unable to pay basic bills and rent. So we do believe this policy change helps international students on that aspect. And it especially makes it more affordable for a lot of the international students. And I think this is one positive direction that most international students, we just had our AGM in November, and one of the big things, a lot of the students actually found this step very positive on that.
Can I just add one thing? Mm-hmm. We're very conscious that this could be a pull factor, and also, crowd in some people, unscrupulously, immigration. We're aware of that. So that's why you would have had to have applied for a student visa by October. So this isn't an open-ended, it's a time-limited policy with a time-limited cohort precisely. And I think, yes, I agree with both Randall and Bipin that this could be a pull factor and incentivize demand, but we wanted to draw a line around it so we could kind of assess the impacts and limit the cohort before we decided what to do. And that's why it's time limited.
Great, thank you. And so thinking